Welcome to part 2 of the television lecture. This part of the lecture will cover the history of television. The first television was invented by Paul Nipkow in 1884. In 1884, Paul Nipkow used what you see here to send images over wires that used a rotating metal disc. It sent it through the light and it created an image. It only had 18 lines of resolution, so compare that to what we have. In 1928, John Logie Baird, who was from Scotland, sent television pictures from London to New York by shortwave radio. He also demonstrated television in color and developed a video recording system which he called phonovision. The next year, the British Broadcasting Corporation, or the BBC, sent out experimental television transmissions. At first, Baird had to pay the BBC to transmit his images. In 1930, the Baird Company brought out the world's first mass-produced television set called the televisor. This was the first mechanical television. In 1927 through 1930, we had one of what is known as the patent wars, and this one specifically related to the technology of television when we moved into an electronic television. Philo Farnsworth was a Midwestern schoolboy who at 16 years old drew his idea for a TV on a chalkboard in front of a very astonished teacher. This lone wolf inventor patents it, transmits the first television picture electronically in 1921. Farnsworth used a cathode tube to create what's called a, quote, electron image, unquote, which was then scanned to produce an electrical signal. By transmitting that image from the tube to a screen, the first all-electronic television was created. About the same time, Russian inventor Vladimir Zworykin worked with Westinghouse and RCA to develop a television by inventing a cathode ray-based, what he called, kinescope in 1929. He was one of the first to demonstrate a television system with all the features of modern picture tubes. Zworykin also invented the iconoscope tube, which was used in the first television camera, which you see here in the photo. Farnsworth sued for patent infringement, and RCA challenged Farnsworth, but it lost when Farnsworth high school teacher produced those original drawings that he made on the chalkboard. Then RCA negotiated with him and paid Farnsworth over $150,000 in royalties. The evolution of television was delayed through most of the 1930s, and this was related to the Great Depression. About 1939, the first public demonstration of television was displayed in New York City by NBC at the World's Fair. Sales of the deluxe mechanical television receivers were limited to extreme enthusiasts or the wealthy because they were very expensive. The National Broadcasting Corporation, or NBC, was RCA's broadcasting wing. It began regular U.S. television broadcasting on April 30th, 1939, with a telecast of President Franklin D. Roosevelt opening the New York World's Fair. Programs were transmitted from the NBC mobile camera trucks to the main transmitter, which was connected to an aerial atop the Empire State Building. Some other things that you'll see in this slide is, at that time, there were 23 television stations in the United States. That's total stations, that's not networks. One of the photos here you see is this home with a television, and obviously based on the evening gown and the clothes they're wearing, these people have some money. No, it's a bit small here, but again, look at the prices on these televisions and compare these to what they would cost today. In comparison, televisions today are relatively inexpensive. Then came the Second World War. This put the brakes on television. After the war, we had what we call the invasion of television. You had booming economic growth, people had more free time, they had more money, and with that, they wanted more entertainment. 3 of the networks began weekly programming with a wide variety of programs. The first regular television program premiered June 1948, and that was the Texaco Star Theater. It was hosted by comedian Milton Berle, and he played the role of Uncle Milty, who entertained with songs, comedic skits, and other well-known Hollywood types as special guests. Your Show of Shows premiered with Imogen Coca and Sid Caesar. Again, wonderful comedians. With television show came television fans, which now was an opportunity for those who wanted to advertise. So we had sponsors. We didn't have a whole series of different television commercials. We had sponsors, and they were the only one who advertised. The engineers perfected the rectangular cathode ray tube, and the price dropped. The price dropped about 50%. So now the average American household could afford a television set. Within that time period, 1 million television sets were sold in the United States alone. One of the evolutions of television that's very famous is related to games and quiz shows, which became very popular in the 1950s. It was to increase ratings and kind of heat up the competition and to bring in more sponsors and advertisers. So producers of these shows started to rig these games, giving some of the contestants the answers to the questions. One of the most famous ones happened in December 1956 when a young English professor from Columbia University appeared on a show called 21, and he beat all the contestants for several weeks. His name was Charles Van Doren, and he accumulated well over $100,000 in prize money. Authorities began to question the integrity of these shows, and eventually a House committee was assembled to investigate. Van Doren asserted he was innocent during this time until he finally confessed in November 1959. His defense was that producer Albert Friedman told him, "Oh, this is normal practice." As a result, Van Doren was publicly humiliated and was fired from his job at Columbia University. After that, the networks changed the way they accepted sponsors' money and changed from a single sponsor to what we see today, which are called spot commercials or spot commercial sales.